Mechanics of Reddit. Which car shows up at your shop most often? I work on Audis and VWs. My joke is, no one gets rich working on Hondas. As a VW owner, I know. Glad I can help. When my last car, Saturn, crapped out on me for good, I asked the mechanic which cars he recommends, and he said, the cars that come into the shop the least are Toyota, Hyundai and Nissan, and their luxury brands, Lexus, Acura, Infiniti. 3 years later and I've never had a problem with my Honda CR-V or my wife's Corolla. 97 Corolla. I would ride this car into war. Dodge Pulpervan. I can tell before even opening the hood that you're going to need a new transmission solenoid. Service writer here. The majority of work we do are Dodge, Chrysler, and Jeep. The owner of the shop calls them boat anchors, because that would be the only thing they're good for. After that, Ford diesel trucks, especially the 6.0L, followed by Pontiac and Oldsmobile. Auto tech here. I would have to say Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep are the worst new or used. Constant electrical problems due to their genius idea of a totally integrated power module. Basically it's the fuse block under the hood with non-replaceable relays. Watch your left headlight doesn't work. That will be $700. Even worse is their PT Cruiser. Electrical problems galore. Control arm bushings go bad. Bad design of the engine mounting so the car vibrates constantly even after replacing all the mounts. Shifter cables stick so can't pull it out of gear. Bad seatbelt sensors that when ordered new from the dealer are bad. Now on to bad used cars. Out of warranty. Stay away from European cars. BMW, Mercedes, VW, Audi, Saab. What I see with them is mostly previous owner neglect. Sludged motors, cracking vacuum hoses, worn out brakes and struts, expensive parts and repairs. All manufacturers build some turds but these are the ones that stick out most cause I deal with over 100 cars a week by all the manufacturers at my job. One thing that Japanese manufacturers have over the rest and why I think their cars seem more reliable is that they got into the customer that maintenance is key. Most of the new cars today use variable valve timing which is run off of oil pressure and if you don't change the oil regularly it will clog up this system and there is at least an 1K repair if not a whole engine. I can understand the Volvo thing. Not only do those things have frames that weigh as much as small mountains. As someone that works for a different division of the company, no longer affiliated, but they were until recently, they devote so much effort to quality control and product development. One bolt is faulty, they make it their priority to make sure that piece will never fail again. Chrysler products seem to be the most unreliable. They turn into crap boxes pretty fast. The trucks are decent. The Cummins diesel is decent. The thing that it sits in is new so much. Saab. I work at a Saab dealership. Saab driver, I can confirm this. I just rolled off the shop. As a mechanic, that Saab is full of hilarity and sympathetic winces. Every time I buy a car I feel like I'm stepping up to the craps table. Every maker out there has produced a turd at one time or another. I've been told to hope for a car built on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah, I bought a new Honda Civic because I needed a stone cold reliable Econobox. At 65k the engine block cracks. Honda stepped up to the plate and provided me with a completely new engine, head and everything for zero cost. 5k outside factory warranty. Everybody produces lemons, but everybody doesn't step up to the plate. The same Audi A8 every couple of months for a paint job because he tailgates tractor trailers. Also minivans. Well, their owners are just bad drivers. Chrysler Company has recommended you should learn engine repair. Never buy a Land Rover unless you like to burn money. Newer Mercedes and BMW are good cars. They last a long time, but when they break you will feel the hurt. Anything exotic is a no-no unless you are wealthy. Even a cheap Ferrari, which may seem cool, hey, Magnum Pi drove one right, good luck. It takes a good tech 21 hours to pull the motor, and you will pull it often if you try to drive that car like an animal ever, or daily it at all. If you want into the desert, buy a Land Rover. If you want to get back out of the desert, buy a Toyota. Somewhere in an alternate universe Mike the mechanic is commenting Harry Dresden's Blue Beetle. I so want to comment but don't want to spoil it for those who aren't caught up. Anytime I see any Audi come up to the shop, I know we've got rent money for the month. Tell me about it. One of my dream cars was the '08 RS4 until my buddy bought one. Well, let me elaborate on that. He bought an American one imported to Canada. Needless to say, it was a costly purchase. 35k CAD. 1 year later, 14k poorer from nickel and dime repairs, he decided to sell it. The most unfortunate part is he bought a Range Rover. Poor guy. I know a guy that runs a relatively small shop in London, specializing in German cars. Car he sees most often, BMW E46, in all its various forms. Car and repair combination that he sees most often, Mercedes A-Class, W168, gearbox replacement. Mazda, but we're a Mazda dealer so it kinda makes sense. As certified guy here, that's the good one. My old man has been fixing cars for nearly 35 years. I've learned a thing or two from him, but he always swears the worst car that was ever built, that had to be fixed the most was the Chrysler K car. He said no two bolts on any of those cars were the same. They could be American or metric sizing. Nothing ever lined up body panel wise and they held many a secrets from the assembly line they rolled off of. I was under the impression that it was a nice Reliant automobile. My buddy's dad runs a shop. He always seems to be working on Fords. That is probably why he hates them so much. I have owned a few Fords and they were good to me. A lot of 80s and 90s Fords have to go to body shops too. They rust pretty quickly, but I also own a Ford, and mechanically, it runs perfectly. Not Volvos. Pre-Ford buyout Volvos. My 1986 Volvo 740 GLE lasted 240k, never garaged a day in its life. If I didn't take it with me to college in upstate New York hello salt trucks, I believe it would still be with us. This is just one of many questions I would love to see answered as potential used car purchaser. Is there a best car buying guide on Reddit? I've had a Honda Accord in my family for 10 years and it has 100k miles on it and the only things I've ever had to do to it were change the tires and the oil. My parents are insisting on buying me a newish car for graduation but I think I would rather just stick with my Accord until it dies. My brother's Nissan on the other hand breaks in some way once a year. Only cars my family has had issues with were anything anti-Chrysler, garbage cars. A co-worker of my old man sold him on Volvos and we've been a Volvo family with multiple cars racking up 350k miles. Volvo for life. The Volvo life is the life for me. I worked as a mechanic for 3 years, and during that time we were encouraged to give very thorough investigations of vehicles, mostly so they could try and sell the pants off of you. It seemed in my area, more often than not American cars and trucks would generally have more loose or broken parts, tie rods, and wheel hub bearings, expired brake fluid, bad brake cylinders, etc., etc. I'm a proud American and all that, but unfortunately we build shittier cars. However, American cars are a heck of a lot easier to work on than foreign models. Knowing this I still went out and bought an old F150. It gives me something to fix on the weekends. And that's why I love my F150. Yes, it may break, but I can fix it myself. I don't need to take it in. I can walk up to the auto parts store, buy a piece for a few dollars and replace it myself. Neglected ones. Most cars are pretty darn reliable nowadays. If you are looking to buy a new car, do your research first. After that, it is up to you to have proper maintenance done. Bet you never had a Fiat. This thread is a great example of how Reddit always misses the opportunity for an informative and helpful post by telling the same lame joke over 1000 times. By the way, the simplest answer to this question is Dodge, Jeep, Chrysler are the worst. Honda, Toyota are the best. European are the most expensive to repair, and everything else is somewhere in between. No one said Hyundai. I'm going to hope that's a good thing. Used to be a Hyundai tech about 4 years ago. They are pretty reliable, and as of recently, have really got the whole car thing down, after building engines for ships and such. Really glad they stopped with the timing belt thing. I work on turbo Subarus locally for free. Most common reason I have a car in? Leaking something from somewhere. This weekend I get to battle an 08 WRX's power steering rack. Then again, the people who run turbo Subarus usually beat on them. Old Volvos last forever, that's for sure. World record of miles driven is on a Volvo page 1800 with 3 million miles. 3 of my good friends are mechanics, so I just mass texted them and got a pretty much the same answers. I myself have been into cars since I was about 20, so here's what they say. Most reliable Honda by far. The 90s Hondas and one still made in Japan are the best of the best. Excellent resale value. Even 91-93 models still sell for $4,000 if they are in good shape. Just change the oil and change the timing belt, and they will run forever. Toyota dang near as good. Just air and fun to drive. Old people cars mostly, though Scion is trying to change this. Nissan Subaru only minor things break and have great performance. If you got a Honda Toyota as your to from work car, then you want a Scooby Nissan for your weekend fun car. Worst Japanese car, Mitsubishi. The Lancer Evers are like jet fighters. Super performance, but need constant maintenance. All their other models are budget garbage for people who can't afford better. Worst car company far anyway, GM, even beating out Dodge. Bad engineering, poor reliability, poor resale. They have had cars with 20,000 miles on them and had complete engine failure. That's not even considered broken in on a Honda. One of my buddies has a guy coming with his 88 Prelude that needed a new clutch. Original engine with 786,000 miles. No oil leaks, runs great. Best American car, new Ford models. They are so much better than their 80s 90s models. Most improved car, Hyundai. Getting more reliable and some have good performance. Best car for least amount of money, Honda Fit. Worst car for least amount of money, Chevy Spark or Sonic. The low-end models are crappy Korean Daewoo cars that sold so poorly here in the States that GM decided to buy them. Well, what did you expect? European cars are just slightly worse than American car as far as reliability, but generally have better performance. Overpriced and often over-engineered. The PT Cruiser is a major problem child. As someone who's worked at a couple shops for close to a decade now, this is tricky question. All cars are liable to break down in some fashion, but among more modern vehicles, last 20 years or so, quality as a whole has risen. Are there problem models here and there? Sure, but the manufacturers generally stay on top of things with recalls or updated parts so that any specific issue gets fixed. From my experience, the most vehicles I see are GMs, Fords, Toyotas, but that's only because there are more of them on the road by average. This is the most correct response, but every PT Cruiser should be driven off a cliff. Please don't say Dodge Charger. Tie rods, bro. Keep an eye on them out at tie rods. I work at a Dodge dealership. I drive a VW and my dashes it up like Christmas lights. The only thing I've gotten out of this thread is that I should sell my PT Cruiser. As a tech at Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler can have a lot of big problems after a while. When I worked at Toyota, we just had a lot of cars with little problems. I just went from the most reliable car I've ever owned, 95 Cherokee, to a Corolla. I have a feeling I won't be at a gas station or a service station anytime soon, I hope. This is completely going to depend on type of shop, AVG, labor cost of shop, area the shop is located in. If the shop specializes in a particular kind of car, German, JP, etc. Also depends on how many that car are out on the streets. More cars equals more likely to end up in a shop. Base rate fallacy. Broken ones. Noted. You have been visited by the Wisdom Pupper type. Study well, Pupper, or you will fail your next text at school. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.